and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. Now, since the inception of the present administration in 2015, the federal government has been seeking ways to deepen access to credit for micro, small, and medium enterprises by focusing on capacity building and awareness creation for small businesses. Now, so far, growth of windows for credit facilities has improved with adequate financial provision to support small and medium-scale businesses, as well as make micro-capital available for prospective traders. Now, the investments, which run into billions of naira, cut across Agricultural Credit Guarantee Scheme Fund, refinancing and rediscounting scheme, federal discount window lending, primary dealer credit facility, and others financed by the Central Bank of Nigeria to reinvigorate the enterprising spirit of the Nigerian business community, especially women and youths. So what does access to credit mean? How can one access loans without collateral? Now, and how will it impact households? Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will underscore the utilization of these credit facilities and how accessible and operational the windows of opportunity are for Nigerians, as well as the performance in boosting GDP through these schemes. But first, let's get to see this report by Yahanasu Hassan Barau.
Home to able-bodied young persons struggling over the years to assert themselves as productive and proud members of the state. With multiple financing interventions by the federal government to help the youth pursue sustainable economic engagement, Kano is believed to be on the forefront in driving maximum benefit from such schemes. For instance, the Anko Borrowers Program, which covered production of many crops like maize, wheat, rice, and cotton, has attracted many youth to venture into farming, with industries coming up ranging from small, medium, and large scales, providing job opportunities for the teeming populace.
You can see that farming is everything. If you can farm, I'm telling you, you will get more than what you want.
Chain begins from the farm. Job creation begins. In the industry, continuation. In the market, continuation.
I recall that Nigeria was spending over 1 billion naira daily to support rice bills importation. But today we are not spending even 1 naira. This is a very great achievement to the country.
Ibrahim Muhammad is among those that benefited from one of the federal government training and empowerment program under the Nigerian Content and Monitoring Board. Being a graduate of computer science, he is now fully into GSM repairs with knowledge acquired and equipment given to him. He and his partners alike are not only out of joblessness, but employers of labor.
Do something in our home, in this place, in other places, and you can train other people.
Need to get them working. When they're busy, the issues of insecurity, banditry, kidnappings, and so many other things will decrease to the barest minimum level.
In addition, Kano at present has more than 100,000 poor and vulnerable households who receive 10,000 naira monthly stipend to uplift their livelihood. Harira Adu now owns a herd of goats and sheep, courtesy of the support of the federal government. She is among the beneficiaries who now have better stories to tell, just like this young NCE holder who is now into backyard poultry production as beneficiary of the Government Enterprise Empowerment Program. With the support received from the federal government, no doubt the lives of the likes of Harira and Ibrahim have changed from being in extreme poverty to actors in various sectors of the economy.
All right. The report sets the tone for tonight's discussion, but let me go ahead and introduce our guests. I would like to welcome to this program Dr. Dikko Umarurada, who is Director General, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDA. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let me also welcome Dr. Musa Olashko, Assistant Director of Development Finance of the Central Bank of Nigeria. It's nice to have you join us.
Good evening, sir. Nice being there.
All right. And joining us from Ibadan Network Center is the Honorable Ahmed Sajo, who is a public affairs analyst. Sajo, it's good to see you.
Thank you, my brother. Good to see you too.
Right. Now, as usual, we acquaint you with the procedure of this program. At the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. Of course, this program, today's program, is in response to issues that some of our viewers raised last week. And they called in, they wanted to know about how to access loans. And in response to that, the NTA is bringing you this program on access to credit facilities. So at the appropriate time, you can get to be part of this program by calling in. The numbers will be on your screen, so watch out for the numbers. The numbers will be on your screen. So when those numbers are on the screen, just note them down, and at the appropriate time, you can call in. And as we always say, if you do call in and your call gets passed to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And once your call has been passed through, we like to encourage you to go straight to the point, ask your question, make a comment. Don't bother about greetings. There's not much time. And try and keep it short and straight to the point so others can also get on the platform and air their views. So thank you for being on NTA Tuesday Live tonight. It's all about access to credit facilities. Welcome once again. Now, assessing what happens and how people get to put in their papers, it's a difficult task for some people, right? So let's start from the very beginning and say, what is available and who can get what?
Thank you very much. I think you have raised a very important and fundamental question as regards to the credit facility. And I would like just to mention that MSME, you know, they are catalysts for the economic development of any nation. And that has made them very critical to the economy, meaning that they are responsible for 96% of the businesses in this country. And then apart from skills, access to capacity building or skills acquisition by the operators, and then access to national and international market, I think credit has always been the most critical issue in the terms of development and growth of MSMEs in the country. But that has not been without issues, because all what we are trying to create in the space is to try to create more employment, more wealth, reduce poverty, and then mobilize resources for manufacturing and what have you in the country. So I think credit has always been a very critical issue. And when you talk to basically to all the MSMEs, they will tell you credit, credit, credit. But to us, who are in the business of the development of MSMEs, the major problem is skills as well as access to the market. But a lot of people will ask you of credit, but when you look critically into their business, it's not the credit. But credit problem has always been a very, very serious issue to MSME development. Not that there are no credit facilities available in the banks, not that there are no credit facilities or intervention by the CVN, not that it's not available with the microfinance bank, but majorly there are issues that we need to tackle before we get to that. First of all, there are issues that has to do with lack of skills by the operators. There is also a risk perception by the banks, because the banks have they see MSME as a very high risk businesses, and thus because they see very high risk businesses, they tend to slow down in providing the necessary things for the banks, for the MSME to access the financing. And when you look also through the MSME, you see that there is lack of character. Some of them just want to collect the money, not because they want to use it to grow the businesses, but they want to use it for other purposes and see it as a national cake. And then we also have to look at the high rate interest rate by the MSME. When you look at their businesses are small businesses. Most of them, especially when you look at Nigeria, majority of the MSME, 99.8% of the MSMEs are macro businesses. Those people who operate within the range of 1 naira to less than 10 million naira. So if you look at those people, they have, when you give them high interest, the rate of them to survive the business and to repay the loan is very slim compared to the fact that they lack the basic skills to operate.
So these are just a few of the numerous problems. But it's interesting you talk about skills and particularly risk perception. Well, Dr. Lashupo is here. Risk perception, well, but that's one of the biggest issues because if the financial institutions believe that people who are trying to access credit have a high risk, then it's not going to work, is it?
Yeah, good evening once again. Sorry, good evening, Nigerians. We're talking about access because we can see a gap. And the gap has been established between demand for credit and also the supply side of credit. There's been a PwC report around 2016 that has estimated about a gap of 700 billion naira to finance MSMEs in Nigeria. If you extrapolate that to today, we'll be talking about over 1 trillion naira. Leveraging on the submission by the DG Smeden, there are actually barriers to this access. It's mentioned quite a number, and you've actually pointed on one of the major ones, which is the risk. To mitigate this risk, that is the crucial role the central bank has been playing over the years to ensure that we can actually stimulate credit to these employment elastic sectors, MSMEs in particular. One of the efforts of the bank is the introduction of National Collateral Registry, which is a bureau that actually allows entrepreneurs to leverage and use their movable assets, which is basically what they have. Their machinery, their plants, their vehicles. If you're doing Uber business, for example, you can actually use these as collateral for the loans you seek. As of today, we have banks that are not too comfortable with this type of movable assets. Of course, banking is traditional. Focus has been on the movable assets. So there's been a lot of engagement, collaboration with the banks to ensure that we can actually use the strength of the SMEs to create opportunities for them. What the bank has also been doing is to reduce the cost of finance, which is the interest rate. All CBN interventions pre-COVID were being administered at 9%. With the advent of COVID, the management of the bank reduced the interest rate to 5%. This is just to create opportunities for the MSMEs. Beyond our conventional intervention programs, we have also brought in targeted interventions that will ease access to credit. One of them is the AXMIS, which was being administered in collaboration with the Bankers Committee. As of today, we have about a bit over 38,000 beneficiaries that have been able to access about 138 billion. And these are the small end of the value chain. There's also the targeted credit facility, which also came in during the COVID era. And we've been able to disburse about 248 billion to over 700,000 beneficiaries. The bank's focus is, one, let's bridge the gap between the requirements of the beneficiaries, entrepreneurs now, and also providing some comfort for our lending institutions. Financial intermediation is an age-long process. There's the supply side, there's the demand side. However, we need to facilitate this intermediation to ensure that we can bridge that gap and bring the demand side of credit to meet the supply side of credit.
All right, we'll look at some of these in more details as we go on. But again, something you said here is that banking is traditional. There are those who say traditional, conservative, and so change is very difficult. Well, let's go over to our Ibadan Network Center, and Ahmed Sajo is there. Let's hear from you. This administration has put in place a number of measures to help increase and improve access to credit, to help MSMEs grow and put in place certain things that will generate more jobs and lift as many Nigerians as possible from poverty. But tell us, how do you assess what has been put in place, for instance, towards eradicating poverty? Have these measures succeeded in any appreciable way as to impact on the huge numbers of those who are desiring an intervention?
Thank you very much. I think basically when we're talking about federal government interventions in providing credit for productive engagement, the anchor borrower scheme of the federal of the CBN comes into mind very quickly. The interventions have been very, very productive. We've seen the intervention turned the near desert landscape of a place like Kebbi into a green rice production area. And you can see also that, you know, it has also improved down the value chain from rice production to rice milling, from rice milling to rice marketing and all of that. Beyond that, we've seen how aggressively the Bank of Industry had gone out into, trying to expand its operations and to reach out to a lot more Nigerians that are supposed to be reached. But I'll be very honest with you, when we're talking from the point of view of the people, I think a lot needs to be done, because the whole essence of providing credit to ordinary Nigerians or ordinary citizens is to improve lives and livelihoods. And to improve lives and livelihoods, the disconnect between the system and the beneficiaries must always be bridged at all times. And the targeted beneficiaries, I am happy in your introduction, you talked about women and youth. And I think these are the segments that represents a real relief for the system in this country, that we must improve access to credit facilities for productive engagement by young people, because the youth really represents our future, and by women, because we're increasingly now getting a situation where women head households, and that's in addition to the fact that studies have shown quite explicitly that most times women, when they get their income, most of their disposable income is spent on the well-being of the family. So I think the interventions for now are good. We're in agriculture, in industry, in other areas. Yes, we're making a lot of progress, but we still need to do a lot more. And there's just one gap that I must point out, since we are sitting with people who are involved directly in creating the windows. I think there are gaps. One of the gaps the DG of Smedan had clearly established, and that is the skill gap. But there is also another gap. The public enlightenment gap is a huge gap. We tend to go more in enlightening people through channels that are used by the elite class. Those of us who need a little bit of just enlightenment, as against the people who are out there who see the entire system, of the 5 C's, the collateral and the character, a huge misunderstanding amongst a lot of people, whether you're talking about movable or immovable collateral, to an ordinary person in the rural areas or even in the urban slums who is trying to make a living. It becomes a little bit difficult for the person to understand, and so then the risk mitigation becomes even higher when you consider that somebody's character by your own assessment, does not warrant him being given a loan and things. And I think we can mitigate a lot of these things through the proper enlightenment, through proper connect between the credit provider and the person that is responsible to take the credit. And I think if we go that way, we will be able to achieve a lot more than we have achieved so far. But we should take into consideration very sincerely and seriously the skill gap. Without skills, no matter how much credit you have, you will not even know what to do with it. And I think we need to address this skill gap and the public enlightenment gap so as to achieve greater mileage in accessing, in providing access to credit.
Thank you so much. 3 key issues now brought up: the skills, the risk perception, and, as Ahmed Saju has just said, proper enlightenment. We all which need to be pursued aggressively. But then, in the administration of these funds and these schemes, monitoring and evaluation comes in. Now, let us look at that, and then we'll return to the question of skills and how you acquire those skills. And even for those who have the requisite skills, there are still challenges. But let's start from monitoring, regulation, and evaluation.
Thank you very much. I think major problem we have as a government, in my opinion, is lack of proper coordination within the agencies of government. Because you are talking about monitoring and evaluation. You are talking, I think the CBN has introduced a very fundamental issue. That is through the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme, this SMEs. So I think what they did was they introduced skills acquisition and capacity building. Before anybody can access that funding, he needs to have his capacity built, and we had a collaboration with the CBN in which SMEDEN is part of the training institution for the capacity building as part of the prerequisite for somebody to access the funding. That has been a very, very good intervention, and that has been a very good project, because this is the first we have ever seen of this nature. But we want CBN to do more, being the apex organization in charge of financial institution. As they introduce the skills, I think there is also need to introduce a component of monitoring and evaluation. I think in the last 2 years, I have written to the governor of the central bank on the need for SMEDEN to be part, because we have 36 states of the federation, we have offices, we have zonal offices. I think we can help to evaluate and monitor the intervention of CBN so that the CBN can have a better perspective and the impact assessment of the project, so that we can put our minds together, put our heads together in making sure that the targeted beneficiaries have gotten the needed advantage of that scheme or of that project. But that one they did under the Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises is a very good initiative. But I think there is need for us to collaborate more, to partner more, so that we can deliver for the goods to the Nigerians, because ultimately all what we are doing, the agencies of government and the ministries, we are doing it to impact on the lives of the Nigerian MSMEs. And without the Nigerian MSMEs, we are sure the economy of this country will collapse, because they are the major catalyst and strong pillar to the economy of this country. So I think there is need for sensitization. And even at the point of sensitization, if there is so much synergy and so much knowledge as to the project and the program, I think we can be able to sensitize the people. I can give you an example, right? Because there was this economic sustainability plan, which was chaired by the Vice President of this country. And under it, we have Survival Fund, which is responsible of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, in which I'm a part of the steering committee. And I think what we did and the level of achievement we had under the Survival Fund, which there are so many segments, but it's because there was adequate sensitization and awareness creation, and we didn't restrict ourselves only to the internet application and what have you. What we did was we arranged stakeholders meeting at town halls meeting in all the major cities of the country, in which all the memberships business membership organizations were brought together, and information about the program was given to them. So we had a large people who have applied for it. In fact, we were looking for just 500 people, but we got over 1.5 million Nigerians who have applied under that scheme through the sensitization and awareness creation, which is very critical because people need to know. A majority of Nigerians are living in the rural areas, and most of them they need to do, because what we did was we created jingles in Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, in all the major languages of the country, in which all the information was passed on to the beneficiaries, and they were able to key into it and get the benefit of the intervention.
Well, in terms of regulation, of course, you would say that the CBN is the big regulator, but interestingly, you said 9% was what you give out, and COVID came and you dropped even lower. But then, no one could have imagined that a pandemic of this magnitude would hit. And so I'm going back to the question of risk perception. Now, for even those who were able to measure up, COVID came and completely wiped out their base. It became more difficult for people to be risk-free. So how do you address that?
Okay, on the part of the CBN, we've had these robust engagements with the beneficiaries before the advent of COVID, and also for those that have been able to have challenges because of COVID. And what the bank has done is to give them a two-pronged approach, like a leeway, to enable them go back into production. The first is to reschedule the facility for those that require more time to go back to production, break out of that cycle of indebtedness, and be able to grow their enterprise. The second is to bring in refinancing, because you can actually do a tenure elongation when you have something to start with. Because of insecurity, COVID, some were back to square one. So we also introduced refinancing, which is to give them extra capital to start the businesses, give them more time to be able to grow that business and repay their facility.
And perhaps a moratorium as well.
More, of course. I mean, the Bankers Committee announced a one-year moratorium for last year. It's been extended again, just to ensure that we are able to jumpstart this economy. From his last submission, we totally agree on issues around media presence. We need to do more. And it's also very pertinent that we have this synergy among all agencies of government. What they have proposed is a good to have, but we're also looking beyond that. M&E is a spot assessment. We're looking at an holding for the entrepreneurs. Some of them have not done businesses before. This is the first they are doing, and they are trying to break away out of the chain. So what we are trying to introduce now, in partnership with the training agencies, is what we call a BDS, Business Development Support Service, which will cover training, it will cover the monitoring, and also there is the mentoring part of it. So we're actually able to expose these young entrepreneurs to established names in their line of activity, so that they can have that unholding process. And in the next 5-10 years, we can talk of more of Dangotes, more other entrepreneurs that have been able to grow from small to where they are today. The bank's focus is around women, around the youths. If you look at the interventions I've mentioned, the AXMI's focus has been on youths. The TCF, Targeted Credit Facility, the focus has been on youth and women. We also have an intervention, the MSMEDF, that we actually dedicated 60% of the loanable funds to women entrepreneurs. So the paradigm shift has been established, and we are trying to midstream all these entrepreneurs that are economically active. It's not everybody that can manage credit. So the focus is on those, like I said, that have the passion, that have the skill prerequisite, and they can also manage the credit to grow their businesses.
Okay. Sajja, will come back to you about a network center. And yes, you identified this gap, you said, has to do with proper enlightenment. But again, you are a media expert. So you talked about, utilizing media organs, enlightenment vehicles, which mainly target the elite and those in the urban centers. And so tell us, if you will, what's the best approach to going to the grassroots and to take the enlightenment to those people that you have identified, not being the ones who you find in Ibadan, the center of Ibadan where you are, or in Abuja here, or Lagos, or Kano for that matter?
I think every productive engagement that intends to mobilize ordinary people and make them the focus requires some measure of extension work by persons that are responsible. When our agriculture was intervening in a manner that we had the pyramids of Kano, when we had our cocoa production, cotton production with large scales, and we were actually providing raw materials for European factories. At that time, the key factors of enhancing this production were the extension workers on the field. And they were located in virtually every community in this country, and they were working closely with this. They knew the families, they understood the families. I think we need to move back to a system like that. That if we're talking about intervention in agriculture or agriculture financing, there must be some community level persons who will be engaging those that are supposed to be beneficiaries, so they can understand better. We need to go beyond just talking to ourselves at the level of elites to talking to the people directly and making them understand. When we're talking about risk, yes, the risk factor is there with the financiers, but there is also a risk factor with the beneficiaries. There are a lot of things that could make, for example, you take a loan and you sink it into agriculture, and then there is flooding, or there is drought, or there is something, that is also a risk on your own part as the person who is producing. If you are a small and medium scale enterprise, you pick a loan, and something as adverse as COVID, or even something as adverse as a major shock in the system occurs, that creates a problem for you. You are also at risk. So we need to connect properly with officials that could go and talk to these people in a language and in a manner that they will understand. That is what I am trying to say. But most importantly, we must understand that there are a lot of explanations that these people will need to up their skills. One of them is the fact that we could begin to engage people to add value to whatever they produce, either as entrepreneurs or as primary producers, like the case is in agriculture, or in other development fields. What skill gaps can we also increase in them, so that they can add value to whatever primary productive activity they hold, so that the credit itself will have greater value, because it's a return on investment that determines whether the person who picked the loan will be able to pay back or not. And don't forget that no matter what happens, paying back the loan is not just the only goal. The other goal is that he must, at the end of the day, even after paying, he gets a little bit of a disposable income that he can use for his own life and livelihoods. Otherwise, if it is just a cycle of collecting loan and returning loan and nothing comes to him as a person to improve on his life and livelihoods, or on her life and her livelihoods, I think it's not very, very valuable. So at the end of the day, we must configure a system whereby the loans that are picked are utilized maximally. I understand, and the CBN person is there, the SMS are there. I understand that one of the major problems is that most people who start businesses in this country either do not have bankable feasibility studies, or they do not have bankable business development blueprints that they can rely on. You know, when you're talking about monitoring, what are you monitoring? You are supposed to monitor, you know, a process according to the plan that has been laid down, you know, for the process to occur. And what are the plans? Have you gotten the plans? Are you satisfied with the plans? I'm happy one of the contributors spoke about a business development or business development assistance services that are supposed to be there. Because people must understand that the process of accessing the credit facility must be based on something that is concrete, you know, a business plan, a blueprint that is very, very concrete. And that skill is also, you know, it's a huge skill gap within the economy. And so we need to improve on all of that, so that when people come with their reports or feasibility reports or their business development plans to access these loans, the assessment process that will be taken by the credit provider will take into cognizance return on investment and improvement in livelihoods and all of that before we plunge into providing credit. I think the risk is on both sides, and it behoves those of them at the credit provision level to help in assessing both risk factors on their own part and on the part of the person that they're giving the credit, so that the credit can return and some disposable income will be provided for improved livelihoods.
But fine. You know, it's not going to be just about accessing credit, pay back the loan. What does the beneficiary get out to make his life improve? Now, there are two other issues I'd really like Dr. Olashukwu to talk about. One of them has to do with spiraling inflation, which, of course, give and take, can wipe out whatever margin that any enterprise can make. That's one part of it. And then there's a second issue, and this also calls for proper coordination that Dr. Rada talked about. And you find that even the small businesses that are struggling to survive are paying all kinds of taxes to the states, to local governments, to task forces are all over the place, and these are not envisaged in, you know, all the terms that they used to, access this credit.
Yeah, I think government has made some giant strides in the areas of ease of doing business in Nigeria, starting with the waivers on registration for business, small businesses, the harmonization of taxes, also in terms of value chain approach to financing, to ensure that there are actually established markets for what the SMEs produce. But beyond all these, the issue that I mentioned about challenges around inflation, it's pertinent, it's glaring. For some months now, we've been able to manage, not significantly reduce, but manage the growth of inflation. However, if you look at the inflation basket, food inflation accounts for about 60 to 70% of that. And that is why anytime there's a small increase, it's felt sharply by Nigerians. And that's what we've been trying to address under the Anchor Bearers program. The focus of the ABP has been on grains, which is the most consumed in Nigeria, maize, rice, now wheat, and also to look at other raw materials that can aid the development of our agro-allied sectors. Prior to the intervention, the APP intervention, if you do a little survey in the open market, you get to see about 50 to 60 brands of imported rice in the Nigerian market. That we've been able to address. Because each time we export the raw materials, we're exporting our jobs. And that also significantly accounts for those anomalies we've been witnessing. For the CBN, we are doing this consistently because we have seen that it's a part that can actually liberate the economy. Government has talked about diversifying the economy for a while. I think this is the first time we're seeing a consistent and concerted effort to ensure that we look beyond oil and focus more on agriculture. Technology now is also a big thing, and government is looking in that direction. I'll just want to plead to Nigerians for patience. It's a patience that will also have a threshold because it's something we have to put timelines to. If we have done it this way, it has not worked, and we are tweaking it a bit now, and we are seeing progress. For the first time in the annals of this country, I read about the cocoa pyramids, the groundnut pyramids. I never saw it, but in the past 2 years, with the support of the Agro-Borers program, we've been able to unveil about 6 grain pyramids. So the potentials are enormous, and now the realities are coming back.
All right. There's a lot we'll talk about the Agro-Borers program later in the program, but we also have reports from other parts of the country, and we'll begin to take those reports now. The first we'll go to is this report from Lagos, and it's by Agbolade Salami.
The macro, small and medium enterprises MSME sector in Nigeria provides about 70 million jobs for the unemployed, with great impacts on the nation's economy. However, a large percentage of these entrepreneurs do not have access to working capital financing, and this factor is creating a loophole in their business operations. To ensure sustainability and viability of MSMEs in the country, owing to their contributions to the economy, the federal government, through the Ease of Doing Business initiative, enactment of enabling laws, and the promotion of financial inclusion, is encouraging more access to credit facilities for entrepreneurs at an affordable rate.
We got it, and we got it at the right time. We put it to use at the right time. We've started this institution that is growing already, and I can say clearly that without that fund, I don't think we would have been able to do it.
That would not have been possible if the loan was suspended. If it broke down for one reason or the other, then we wouldn't have been able to continue. So we were only able to continue because in spite of the disruption to the way business was being done, a lot of things, went ahead and processed some of the loans.
The ideology of the government aimed at reviving struggling businesses through availability of capital, experts say, has led to a growth increase of about 15% for private businesses, with a significant impact to the nation's economy.
Not just to me, to the Nigerian community entirely, because I'm employed now, I'm receiving salary, I'm helping my family, I'm changing lives. So it's a great thing. They should not stop. There are a lot of people like me out there that need this opportunity.
I, for one, thought the interest rate was beautiful, very easy for you to, that's if you know what you're doing in business, is a single-digit interest rate, and then the tenure is 10 years. So we thought as a business, this is like an opportunity of a lifetime.
Beneficiaries of the funds admit that while access to capital has been without hurdles, they added it remains a major ingredient of business survival.
All right, that report from Lagos. We have another, and this one coming up is by Benny Adams.
The program is building on the successes recorded in the implementation of the other tracks of the scheme and in line with the plan to fully rejuvenate the economy with focus on MSMEs in the manufacturing sector. Chairman of the steering committee of the scheme, Mariam Katagum, says the federal government is rolling out the last component of the survival fund known as the Guaranteed Offtake Scheme. It is an intervention to assist small and growing businesses affected by the pandemic.
These include face masks, hand sanitizers, liquid soaps, disinfectants and processed foods such as gari, palm oil, groundnut oil, and so on.
Under the payroll support scheme, 459,334 individuals benefited across 36 states and the FCT, out of which 43% are female-owned businesses and 3% people with special needs. While the Artisan and Transport Scheme, with an initial target of 333,000, artisans and transport beneficiaries have 293,336 successful beneficiaries across 36 states and the FCT. Others are the CAC Formalization Support Scheme with 244,162 small and growing enterprises registered for free, in addition to the General MSMEs Grant Scheme with 82,491 beneficiaries to date.
We have successfully disbursed 56,842,780,000 to 1,079,323 beneficiaries.
The latter scheme is giving preference to products produced in sufficient volumes in each state, which has proven propensity to create jobs and have a multiplier effect on the surrounding economy.
All right, that report by Benny Adams giving an overview of a number of the schemes and how are they meant to impact the beneficiaries. So let's come back to one of the issues about the anchor borrowers scheme. And yes, inflation is being addressed, but again, another trend which we have noticed is scarcity. Now, we still do here, and I say this because I'm imagining that the CBN, for instance, would have access to intelligence that there are still some people who create an artificial scarcity. What they do easily is just mop up, buy up, and then keep them so that they can raise the prices.
Just like trading, aggregation is also a very old tradition. That's talking about middlemen. It's arbitrage. So people take from the market when the prices are low, they keep for a while, and they release it back to the market when the prices are high. That is one part of it. Also now, there is increased pressure from a lot of donor agencies that are doing relief programs to actually buy from Nigeria. There are a lot of relief programs, refugee support programs outside the shores of Nigeria, and they actually come in to buy from Nigeria. So, since they cannot come in directly to buy, they also lure these middlemen to go to the farmers at the peak period, buy it off the farmer, and they take it out of the country. It's in realization of this mismatch that the CBN also introduced a produce for payment option for the farmer. So rather than allow the farmer to go and look for markets, give us the quantum of produce that will repay your loan. As part of our value chain approach to the financing, we're linking the processors to the farmers who are providing the raw materials to ensure that there is no break in the value chain. For all the paddy that you see us display during the pyramids, what happens thereafter is we link the millers to directly come and pick from those places to their mills. And we actually do a zonal allocation to also reduce the logistics involvement for the millers, just to ensure that we are able to moderate prices. The magic is to increase production. Means we need to increase the infrastructure that will support production. We need to move Nigerian agriculture away from rain-fed to ensure that we can produce all year round. The bank, the CBN, with other stakeholders, is currently working on resuscitating the commodity exchange to facilitate enhanced pricing through price discovery, to increase storage facility, to ensure that value is given to the farmer primarily, and also to the actors in the value chain.
Perhaps at this point, yes, you talked about increase in production, and this cuts across board. Maybe at this point we should turn to the DG Smedan and say, what has Smedan got? For who? And how can those small people in the corners of our country access all this? You say you have offices all over, and even zonal offices.
Thank you very much. I think, first of all, I would like to say that as a matter of clarification, I would like to say that Smedan is not a funding agency. It's more of a technical agency, which is more of doing the business development support, monitoring the businesses, hand-holding the businesses, and then developing policy for MSME in the country. But despite the fact that we provide skills and then we provide capacity, which is a major requisite for any meaningful economic development, because all these things that we are talking about, the business plan, the business plan, how to keep your records, how to manage your business, how to even manage the funds that you collect from the banks, it has to do with somebody who has a capacity to do that. And that is the major thing that Smedan does at every, because our offices in the state, we call them business clinics, because it's a place where everybody can enter and get solution to his problems on the business, and then linking them up with banks that have availability of funding. But Smedan as an agency will also feel that apart from providing all those technical things, there is need for us to also bridge the area of financing. Right. So we introduce some programs which have some financial component in them. One of the major things that we introduce is one local government, one product. Okay. And the idea of one local government, one product is to identify a common product in a local government which has a comparative advantage in that local government, and those people must be in organic cluster. They have formed themselves into an organic cluster.
If I'm not mistaken, all up started a long time ago, but had some, false starts initially, and it was challenging. Would like to know how entrenched is this one local government, one product now, and the impact it has been able to make?
I think we have done a lot on that, and we were able, of course, when we started, we did a pilot studies in 6 states of the Federation, but now we have gone to over 350 local governments in Nigeria. What we did, we formed a cooperative. After forming a cooperative, we trained them by giving them the necessary skills they needed, and then we provide them with a common machine or common equipment that all of the members of the cooperative can use to escalate or scale up their production in terms of improving their branding, the quality of the product, packaging of the product. And then we see that apart from providing them with machinery, we give them a working capital through the microfinance bank. We select microfinance banks in their localities and we give them those funds. And then the interesting thing that the federal government did under all of us, the machinery and the working capital, we gave them, they return only 70% of the money, because 30% is part of the federal government incentive to support those businesses to grow. And at the end of it, you see that they will return only 70%, no interest rate, because Smedan is giving the microfinance banks the administrative charges on disbursing those funds to those people. But at the end of it, there are a lot of success stories to tell. I was in Lagos to launch the dry fish cluster. I was in Taraba State to launch the Moringa tea cluster. And then even tomorrow, I have a program by 1 o'clock that we are going to support one of the best cooperatives that were able to repay their loan despite the moratorium of 1 year we gave them due to the COVID pandemic. But they were able to repay all their loans and they are doing very well. Tomorrow we will have the event in Smedan. I think the OLOP has impacted positively to the lives of the MSME in threefold. One, in building their capacity, providing them the necessary financing with equipment, as well as providing access to market, opening their windows for market, because Smedan, we always, every year we conduct opportunity fair, and most of the product you see in the opportunity fairs organized by Smedan are product of some of our interventions, so that people will see. We carry some of them to international fairs like SISMIP, that happens in China with their product, and then there is matching and technology transfer between those things. With a lot of funding under all of, we can be able to improve on the area of rural industrialization, and then trying to improve production and the lives of the MSMEs at that level. And then we also introduce conditional grant scheme. That conditional grant scheme is largely to help formalize the informal sector, because from the statistics available conducted by MBC and Smedan, it indicates that 99.8% of the businesses in Nigeria are macro businesses. Being macro, and 95% of those macro businesses are informal. So for the chances of growth of informal sector to a formal sector, from macro to small, small to medium, are very minimal in an informal sector. So the idea of the conditional grant scheme is to formalize those informal sectors. But how do you formalize them? Before you do that, because most of those MSMEs, they need to be motivated. So the grant is just a part of motivation. But the idea is to register them with CAC, open bank account for them, give them capacity, build their capacity, and then give them a grant in order for them to continue with their business and for the business to survive, because we have the highest mortality rate of businesses in this country. Why? Because the operators lack the necessary skills to continue the business.
All right, we're fast approaching the midway in this program, and there are a lot of issues still to be taken up, and we expect that when we return after this break that is upcoming, those watching and those who have issues to raise with some of what has been discussed here, and who seek to know how to improve or key into the various schemes that are available, will call through and get answers to their questions. We'll also look at how Nigerians have responded to these schemes, as well as how people have paid back. Would ask to assess that too, and see whether we're doing well in returning, especially for the ones that you have to return only 70%, and 30 is meant to encourage. But we'll do all that after this break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammad Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation. Stay Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Tonight it's all about access to credit facilities, and so far we have looked at many ramifications of this. Well, this part of it, we do expect that we'll have the calls coming through, but before that happens, there's a fundamental issue which many Nigerians would like to know about. Yes, there have been so many schemes put in place by government, many initiatives, but it would seem as if this is barely making a mark on the wall. Is it the numbers that we're talking about here, the huge numbers that need to be addressed? Or what's going on? Why does it seem as if not much is happening?
I think if we look at the statistics, as at today, the last survey that was conducted, it indicates that we have 41.5 million MSMEs in the country. And when you look at the interventions, just the CBN has mentioned that under the agribusiness small and medium scheme estimates about 700 beneficiaries. If you look at the anchor borrowers, it's about 1 million beneficiaries or 3 point something. So, but still, if you look at it, given the quantum of 41.5 million MSMEs that we have in the country, you see it as if it's insignificant. And when you look at the agencies like SMED, and we are intervening 30,000, 40,000, 10,000, you know, if you look at the volume of the MSMEs in the country, it's as if nothing is happening. So I think it has to do with the volume, and then it has to do with also with the small macro level, that we have the highest macro level. Because when you look at the small and the medium and medium can be able to meet the requirements, collateral requirement of the banks, even the commercial banks and the development banks, but the macro cannot do that. So the idea is, what SMEDA is advocating is this requirement for loans should be differentiated. That's the way CBN have started, so that those requirements for macro businesses should be different from the requirement for small and medium, and that should also be different from the large companies or blue chips companies that we have, because it takes them simple steps to get the loans, but it takes a macro business 100 steps to get to where it is supposed to get. And then the risk factor associated with the macro businesses, because of its small nature, and people were doing those businesses to enable themselves, feed themselves and their families. So the chances of them, given the inflation level we are talking about, given the kind of recession and the effect of the COVID on the businesses, it has really reduced the income generation of those small businesses, and hence it makes some of the small businesses to start eating their capital.
Yes, Dr. Ashford.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's better appreciated when we put these numbers as percentages.
Mm-hmm.
The total CBN interventions for supporting agriculture, MSMEs, is just about 9.5–10% of the total credit need we are talking about. So, means we have a gap of 90% that is yet to be filled. We have a population that is growing at an intimidating rate. Means we also need to provide for those extras if we are looking at bridging that gap going forward. However, our approach to this intervention is to create a multiplier effect. We know we don't have the resources to bridge that gap. However, we want to build success stories that will be able to impact on growth. Like the guest from Ibadan rightly said, the focus of the bank goes beyond farmers' ability or MSME's ability to repay their loan. That is just the output of the intervention. The impact is one for us to have improved standard of living that will make them economic agents to contribute to GDP. That is when we can grow this economy. And that is why you've seen, like I mentioned earlier, we understand that they are presently going through challenges, and that's why we are giving this moratorium, loan extension, refinancing, to ensure that we jumpstart the economy. I mean, COVID will be here for a while now. It's glaring to all of us. So we need to start developing our coping strategy. Empowering our SMEs, empowering our farmers is one of those coping strategies that we must catalyze.
Okay. All right. Let's go over to the Network Center. Sergio, you've had the contributions here. I'd like you to look at that and say, well, yes, the population it tends to be challenging, but like they always say, it ought not to be a disadvantage. Just how do we get more productive work and more productive hands?
Is something we all need to do, and we need to do, very effectively, and that is in keeping our data. When you hear, agency leaders talk about numbers, it's like the data itself is not very concrete, it's not very solid. We need to have we need to pay greater attention to keeping our data correct, and we need to pay greater attention.
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
To also tracking, whatever interventions we make.
Yeah, I want to contribute.
It's a good thing that Smedan is having business clinics all around, and beyond people coming to the clinics to complain that they're having problems, I think we need to start doing greater tracking of whatever intervention process we're putting into the system. And generally speaking, if these things we are doing do not impact positively on lives and livelihoods, then we're not making the desired progress. Our population is huge. Our population is, like my brother said, growing at an intimidating rate. Yes, agreed, but if our intervention also grows in an intimidating way, we could catch up. And if we can encourage many more people to first go into productive engagement, and we can encourage many more people to add value to their production, productive processes. I do remember that when we were enlightening people on the anchor borrower thing, we were told that the CBN, which was providing the credit, will also be the off-taker. And as an off-taker, the CBN will buy off the product as a repayment of whatever loan is given. And I encourage that, to be done a lot more, because that is the best way that the people can even know their profit instanta. Because as soon as you know that you produced 100 bags of rice or 100 bags of maize, and that the CBN is going to collect 50 bags as repayment for the loan, you now know that you have 50 bags as your own profit, so you can plan your livelihood and your life around the excess bags that you have. So we need to actually put at the forefront, the issue of improving lives and livelihoods. And we need to also be more focused on younger people. Young people are growing very, more despondent and beginning to lose faith in the country. Anything we can do to restore faith in the younger people, that the Nigeria project can work and work for them, will be essentially very, very key. A key intervention in ensuring that we mitigate a lot of the negative occurrences in our country. So pay more attention to younger people, encouraging more younger people to go into productive ventures, encouraging more young people to become self-sustaining is a major direction to follow. Like I said, where women become key is that women spend most of their income on the households, and women also, are increasingly becoming breadwinners and heads of households. In the Northeast, where I come from, And presently, I'm sure it's a similar thing happening in the Northwest. But in the Northeast, where I come from, quite a reasonable number of the households have lost their husbands due to.
All right, Sergio, we'll ask you to pause a while. The lines are open already, and we have a caller from Katsina, Okaraga, I believe. I hope I got that correct. Hello.
Yes, you are right, sir. Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
I am Okaraga from Cassava.
Right.
My complaint is that the program that is taking place right now, I have to commend Smidan for their effort. The number one effort I'm commending Cassava on the Smidan is the Director General has exposed us to the truth about the programs taking place, assistance to the less privileged in Nigeria. But one of the major problems we are encountering is the people who
yes, go ahead and let them just turn up the speaker in the studio so the guests can hear.
Yes, so the staffers surrounding the Smidan are sabotaging the effort of the Director General. For instance, in Danja local government in Katsina, there was a time the program, a training was took place in that place. After the training, we paid a certain amount of money for the training. After the process, they have to tell us that you don't need to bring your personal business plan, and you discover that you have to pay for the personal business plan. We paid the sum of 7,000 for the business plan. After paying this amount of money, they will tell you they have to prepare the business plan, and of course, there must be room for piracy on the business plan, because even the password of your own portal, you don't have access to the password. It's within them. So you have to still go back through them and get access to that particular place. So it consumes a lot of money from people who are applying. After applying, you must have spent 20,000 to something thousand. At the end of the whole thing, you are not being opportune to it. So it was after this program, after the payment of such amount of money, it took me almost a year now. I've not been able to have access, and the portal has been redesigned for another new way of accessing the portal. So I have to call the particular staff I involved. He told me I have to follow another new process. So this process is not even helping the situation. That is one. Then if actually this program wants to give us what we want, I want to urge the Central Bank of Nigeria to go straight to National Bureau of Statistics. They have the record of people who are small and medium enterprises who are less privileged and they don't have access to funds, that they can give the details. Let us involve them so that those people can build up from where they start from. There are a lot of people that have businesses around, and for almost 10 to 15 years, they are still battling with distress. Depending on the areas you found yourself, where you are doing the business, it might not be, it may be a remote areas, and you have to be coupling as if you are rendering a free service to the place. Take myself, for example, I have school there for almost 20 years. What they are paying right now is just 4,000 naira. How do you survive? Talk of more of helping the whole.
I believe that the DG Smedan had a bit of what your complaint so far, and he'll just comment on that immediately.
I think what he was talking about was the hurdles that he has to cross to access the funding through the National Microfinance Bank. I think that was his question. Because the majorly is the responsibility of the training institutions is to train and provide a certification and then help them to build the business plan and then upload the business plan into the portal of the National Microfinance Bank. At that level, our responsibility has ended. It is now the responsibility of National Microfinance Bank to invite them for interview. Based on the business plan they submitted, and then after the interview, they now provide them with the London or reject the application. So I think the situation here is there are a lot of people who have applied under this scheme. And I think the funding available for the scheme, I think is not going to be enough for all the applicants. So that might be the reason for the selection criteria, but I knew and I'm aware in all the places we have thousands of applicants we have trained and then we have uploaded there, but I think 100 of them were able to access the funding and they were able to get it. But I think the responsibility for the delay of the disbursement of the loan and the call for interview is not entirely with SMEDEN, because ours is just to train, upload, and then generate a code for them. Then the responsibility of other process and disbursement of the loan lies squarely with the National Microfinance Bank. And I think, in my opinion, I was thinking maybe the funding, availability of funding for the scheme, and with the number of applicants, I think that may be the reason for the delay. But I think maybe if the CBN can shed more light on that, they can go ahead.
Okay. Well, we'll just take this other call coming in, and then we'll come back to Dr. Olashupo. He might have one or two things to comment on that. But this Obote is calling in from Akwa Ibom, I believe. Right, go ahead.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, Obote, go ahead, but just turn down the volume of your TV.
I've done that.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. I have just heard of this for the first time, so I wanted to know where SMEDEN is in Akwa Ibom, so that I can get there and have some information about how someone can get the loan, and how to get more knowledge on how to help my business grow. That's why I call.
Yes, it's true. We have office in Akwa Ibom, and our manager in Akwa Ibom is Lucy. And I cannot give you the address of the because I didn't come with the addresses of head, and then but I think I can provide, if you can take my number, I can provide you the address and the number of the state manager in Akwa Ibom, and you can go and visit the state and address, and they will be able to address some of your challenges that has to do with how to access funding and a lot of other things.
All right, so I'm sure that the caller got that response from the DG SMEDEN, and make it easier. You could also, well, from the switchboard there, you could leave your number.
You can visit our website also.
And then, of course, you can also visit the website, SMEDEN website, and then you'll find
all the addresses.
Other addresses and where one particular one in Akwa Ibom is located. But let's quickly go to Dr. Olashupo to comment about what Okaragwa said initially.
Yeah, if it's about the funding part for AXMIS is a contribution of the Bankers Committee. The Bankers Committee actually agreed to set aside 5% of their profit after tax to support agribusinesses and SMEs in Nigeria. So the fund has a limit. However, what National Microfinance Bank has done uniquely is to tier the application process. So the requirement for micro is distinct from that for small, and also that for medium. For micro enterprises, the application process is concluded within 20 minutes, the appraisal process maybe within a day. They don't need to come for a physical interview because of the funds they actually requested, which is minimal. For micro, for small, those are the ones that require some level of examination of their business proposal, which has also been templated to give a homogeneous approach to evaluation process. So basically the information you are supplying is just about a two-pager that talks about you, talks about your business, what you've been doing, what you intend to do, which is what will justify your request for fund. And the bank calls you. If it's going to be a phone interview, it gets conducted. If you need to come to their office physically, they will tell you the nearest branch where you need to go to. They conduct that. However, it should also be established that the fund is not limitless. So it's an issue of appraising the projects, ensuring that it's the viable ones that actually gets promoted.
Well, yeah, he also talked about going direct to a register. And does SMEDEN maintain a register of where you can easily access to determine who actually is a small and medium enterprise.
Yes, I think it's a very good question. And before, we used to have a survey after 3 years with the National Bureau of Statistics. But last 2 years, we introduced mass registration exercise for MSME. The essence of introducing it is to get accurate and then true data on the MSMEs. Survey is an estimate. Here we are trying to do a complete census to get the number of MSMEs we have, what they are doing, what kind of product, what do they manufacture, what do they sell, are they into services, what is their location, what are the kind of, if they are producers, what are the kind of raw materials they produce. The essence of having that data is to provide available data for government on policy making and also for investors coming into the country. If you are looking for raw materials, you know where you can locate it, you know the address of those places, there is even their telephone number and contact. We have started the registration exercise in phases because it requires a lot of funding to do a census of MSMEs in the country. But so far we have registered over 4 million MSMEs in the country with their complete information. Is in our portal, and whoever needs it, we can provide that information, and it can be also used by CBN to be able to know the locations of those MSMEs. And if there is intervention by the government can readily go directly to intervene on the areas needed and the locations where those MSMEs are and what kind of product they are doing.
Okay, we have other reports that will come in just as we wait more calls to come in here. Let's get to see this report from Port Harcourt, and it's by Joy Uzo.
The contribution of the micro, small and medium-scale enterprises to boosting the economy is not lost on the federal government, which is why it has over the years made concerted efforts to roll out different financing programs and institutions to fund this vibrant arm of the economy. These platforms include the Bank of Agriculture, Industry, the Nigerian Incentive-Based Risk-Sharing System for Agriculture Lending, NISA, and the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. Others are the CBN's Anchor Borrowers Program and the most recent, the COVID-19 Palliative Fund, introduced to cushion the impact of the pandemic on businesses. A financial consultant, Nkwachuku Njoku, notes that these platforms are domesticated in Rivers State and are changing the narrative for businesses.
Something has to do with awareness. Something has to do with campaigns. Something has to do with compelling the people, telling them that these things are real. Because some people actually, especially in the MSME sector, believe that the federal government loans are fake when the survival loan was in place. I know what I did to convince some people to be part of it. The artisans that particular package was meant for.
For established entrepreneurs like Mike Elechi with huge investment in agribusiness and water industry, his experience when it comes to accessing some of these credit facilities has not been a palatable one.
We understand that the federal government has these policies, both Central Bank, NASREL, and all funding agencies are funding SMEs, but we have not been affected in this part of the country.
As an active member of the Port Harcourt Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, he is not alone as attempts to get other entrepreneurs of the chamber to share their experience proved abortive, with those who spoke off camera decrying their inability to access even the COVID-19 palliative loan despite going through the application process.
All right, that report by Joy Uzo from Port Harcourt. Still another one. This one is by Ifoma Ndukoli from Umahia.
Micro, small and medium enterprise in Abia State has continued to thrive due to the collaborative efforts of both the federal and state governments in ensuring that the state receives the necessary support accessing credit facilities. Due to the huge size of entrepreneurs that operate in Abia State, the federal government has also rolled out various microcredit schemes to ensure that access to credit facilities do not hinder entrepreneurs who want to expand their businesses. The SME One-Stop Shop, the Survival Fund, the Safe to Own scheme, among other microcredit schemes, are all designed to assist entrepreneurs in boosting their enterprises.
The federal government had introduced a lot of programs to support SMEs. For example, the Bank of Industry has over 10 products targeted at helping SMEs access credit. Some of them are targeted at helping them acquire machinery. The Bank of Industry pay for those very expensive machines that they require, and give it to them as loan, and they pay installmentally.
Some of the beneficiaries of the different microcredit schemes affirmed that the initiative has made them self-reliant.
I also happen to be one of the beneficiaries of the COVID-19 loan scheme. I want to appreciate the federal government for this great privilege.
I'm a beneficiary of Survival Fund grants from federal government. So I use it to support my staff. I have 10 staff in my company.
I want to thank the federal government for the Survival Fund for artisans. I'm very happy for the money. The money helped me a lot.
Where exactly do farmers in Abuja State belong in the microcredit schemes? Project Manager Agric Development Program in Abuja State profiles the answer.
There's this program they call Commercial Agric Facility from the Central Bank, where large-scale farmers are supposed to access credit. Few farmers have been able to access it in Abuja State.
With over 3,000 entrepreneurs in attendance at the maiden edition of the federal government's Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Clinic launched in Abia, stakeholders say they are fully prepared to create innovative ideas to address the challenges faced by entrepreneurs in the state.
All right. Two sides to the story here, first from Port Harcourt and then Umar here. While we had the respondent from Port Harcourt say that nothing has happened in Port Harcourt, they have not been able to access anything. We had a respondent from Umar here who says, yes, we have, including the COVID-19 fund. And, of course, another who says, yes, some farmers have been able to access those. So what do you think is responsible for this thing? Port Harcourt, for instance, really? No impact in Port Harcourt?
I think it's a balanced reporting when you look at it on the average. For the beneficiary in Port Harcourt that said they've not been able to access, about 2 months ago, I think a cassava processing plant was launched in Port Harcourt. The former Minister for Agriculture was there, CBN governor was there, state governor was there. It's part of the CBN's intervention. We're doing a 5-star cassava project in Port Harcourt just to ensure that we get enough raw materials to feed that plant. We've supported maize cultivation in some areas in Port Harcourt. Also, by the time we disaggregate the data for AgsMaize and also for TCF, we actually have a balance across all states in terms of participation in our interventions.
Okay, back to the phones now. We have Paul calling in from Abuja. Paul, go ahead. Paul, are you there?
I'm here.
Right, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm so glad to speak to you, Seristova. I'm honored. Actually, I just want to ask, please, for more than 2 years now, I've been trying to access loan, and it has been very, very difficult for me as a youth to, get some funds to make my life meaningful. I've online applied even to BOI, I've got nothing. I even called the phone number. Nobody picked. I even sent text messages. And I almost lost hope. Please, I really want to start a poultry business where I can rear chickens and turkeys, and also open a barbecue where I can fry meat, fishes, and all those things. And where I'm staying in Abuja is an estate, and I have monopoly. I know that if I get the opportunity, I can really make it truly where I am, because there is nobody doing this kind of business, because I stay in an estate in Abuja.
Paul from Abuja, thank you very much. And you just raised an issue here as well, that you tried to go through the Bank of Industry. And well, yes, as I said at the start of this program, we decided to do this tonight because last week we had callers talking about not being able to access loans, challenges with accessing the loans on the different schemes, and we thought we would do this program to create the awareness and get people talk directly to the agencies involved. And of course, we extended invitations to both the Bank of Industry and NERSAL. Unfortunately, those two organs are not here. We did extend invitations to them. As you can see, the DG Smedan is here, and we also have Dr. Olashpo from the Central Bank here. And so again, the issue is always about trying to key into the schemes, and people try and they can't get in, and this is what leads to the frustration. Right.
Yeah, access is a concern. I mean, we've established that. What the bank has been able to do is to work with stakeholders to ensure that we're able to break these barriers around it. For the guideline, because CBN actually don't lend directly to any entrepreneur or business. All CBN interventions are midwife through deposit money banks, microfinance banks, financial institutions that we actually call participating financial institutions. Every bank can participate on the CBN interventions. However, what the bank has done is to also load all our guidelines for these various interventions on our website. Beyond that, we also have an office in each CBN branch that is a working office for inquiries around these interventions.
Okay.
Those offices are called Development Finance Office. We have one in each state where we have CBN presence, which means it's all 36 states and the FCT.
All right. Back to the phones. We have Umar Shagari calling from Sokoto. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon. Good morning. Hello.
Umar Shagari, go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
It's an honor to talk to you, Civil Stufa, live. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm a business consultant and also an ICT entrepreneur. I've been applying for this loan since 2018. Since 2018. I don't know if there is any requirement that NASA Bank needs for me to access these loans. Because I have a registered certificate, I have PIN number, all those requirements they requested, and I submitted them, and yet I wasn't able to give a loan. And I applied for almost about 4 times. Even this night, I applied for COVID-19, this new portal they open now for another application. I did for SME. So I don't know whether there is any requirement that I'll be missing. Again, I want to speak about Survivor Fund.
Oh dear. Umar Shagari, are you still there? Oh dear. Okay. We lost that call there just as he started talking about the survival funds. But again, going back to the issue he raised about NERSAL, it's the same thing we'll say. We asked NERSAL to come on this program. It would have been a lot easier if the NERSAL had been here, represented here, and so they'd be able to tell you directly if there are certain things you're not doing right or certain things you need to do in addition to what you've done in order to get through to them. But that opportunity isn't here since they're not here. But perhaps, DG Smedan, you'd like to, again, talk about some of the issues that are likely to 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 get in the way when people are trying to access all these issues?
I think to me, this is the first time CVN are coming with this issue, and in which requirements were made easier for micro businesses. But when you look at the other banks, the commercial banks, even some development banks that we have, the issue of collateral is there. And this collateral has always been a major issue to MSMEs, especially the micro and small businesses. But the introduction of collateral registry by the CBN is really helping in that direction. Using the movable asset, you can use your generator, you can use your car as an asset instead of using a C of O for your house or for your farm or what have you. But the information, the required information and the sensitization awareness creation on the collateral registry, we need to do something more about that, because people in the rural area mostly are not aware of, they can't even differentiate what is movable and unmovable assets. So I think we need to do something in terms of awareness creation in local languages, and then try to also make them to know how they can assess that and how they can utilize that opportunity created by the government. And for the first time in the history of this country, I think this is the first time the government has rolled out a lot of billions for the support of MSME in terms of intervention, in terms of loans and what have you. And this is also the first time the government, in the little years I have, this is the first time that the government is rolling out a lot of money on social intervention in this country. But the bottom line here is, how effective is the utilization of those resources given by the government for the benefit of the MSMEs in the country? I think we need to provide more information, we need to sensitize people, we need to create awareness, and then for the people to be able to key in on the requirement and all that is existing. In fact, SMEDA as an agency, we try to break that jinx by creating a credit information portal. Okay. This credit information portal, it made it possible through the help of the DFID, and we did it, but we have not gotten the required cooperation by the banks. Okay. By providing all and feeding the portal with the necessary information. The idea behind the portal is to provide, these are the credit available in this bank for MSMEs, and these are the requirements, and this is how you can assess it. But we have not been getting the cooperation of the banks, and recently we wrote to CBN so that CBN can intervene through the banks to provide those information, which make it easier for MSMEs. Once they enter into the portal, they can see all the available information pertaining credit for MSME in the country.
All right, we have Aishatu Muhammad calling in from Maiduguri. Aishatu Muhammad calling in from Maiduguri. Hello.
I'm a member of women organization.
Right.
We sought a loan for Bank of Agric for farming since 2016. And we did it with an anchor borrower. Anchor borrower connected us with this thing. So unfortunately, it was a rice farming, and before they could organize workshop, take money for ID card, and so many things. So at the end, we couldn't get anything. And the farm that was given to us was on hire. It was late around May. In fact, I was contemplating saying that how could we start dry season farming in May? They said it will do. So finally, when we started, it was flooded, and that was the end. And we've been calling the anchor borrower since then. We've not met him, and now we don't know what we will do. Please, can you advise us? Thank you.
Ashupo, yeah, we'll give you some advice on what you have just said. This is a story that so many people have recounted, similar stories. They go through the rigorous process, and then somewhere along the line something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I empathize with the last caller. It's always a thing of joy when you see women leading economic activity. She's been able to put a lot into this, and now to come to meet this type of disappointment could deter not just ourselves, but other women also from coming into the agricultural space. However, my little suggestion will be that she should go to the Development Finance Office in Maiduguri and meet the Air Development Finance Office.
That's located in the CBN.
In the CBN, yes.
Branch,
It's an open office.
Okay.
Now, because for the Anchor Borrowers program, we don't have individual beneficiary. So it means she's not the only one involved in this.
Yeah, she did say at the beginning that she's
she's under an anchor.
Yes, she did mention that
under the association.
Yeah, she mentioned
so
that.
the DFO will be able to dimension this. We'll know where the challenge came from, and we'll see how best we can support the group.
So you're saying you should go to the
Development Finance Office
in the CBN in Maiduguri,
yes,
and lay on this complaint. Okay, let's go to Ibadan. Ahmed Sajo, you've been quiet for a while because most of those questions were coming to either the DG Smedan or the CBN, or they're talking about. You see how there are so many people who would want to key into the schemes, but again, the agencies through which they can actualize their dreams, there's a problem somewhere, and they're not here to talk to the people. What do you see about all this? This is also a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, Cyril, let's look at it. The first caller made a very, very important contribution that we're trying to push aside, but we shouldn't. When we are going out there to talk to people about accessing some of these credit facilities, we must be careful. Careful in the sense that we don't raise hopes so high that when such hopes are dashed, people become more despondent than they were before. And the stories they tell to other people around will be very discouraging. Secondly, we need to have filters from where we will reduce this despondency. The first caller said he spent money. They spent money on a purpose, and then another money on a purpose before they finally agreed to get their application onto a portal. I think we should have a filter that stops people from spending the little money they have before they apply for the loans. We must mitigate their own losses to some extent, even if we know that the loans, the funds are not unlimited, while the applications are actually in large quantum. So I think we need to begin to reduce the amount of disappointment, because they tell a lot in encouraging or discouraging people from participating in these schemes.
Talk about, and we raised that with Dr. Lashipo earlier on, and in spite of all these efforts to help more small businesses access credit, all efforts to increase the rate of employment generation and make lives better, there are still some Nigerians who create artificial scarcity. We talked about that earlier on. People who go to the markets and then they just mop up all the food, particularly, and hoard them, only for them to come out and raise the prices to make profit. What do you say to that?
Well, you see, the truth about it is that there are people who believe that all is fair in business. Just like some people believe that all is fair in war, some people believe that all is fair in relationships. There are people who believe that all is fair in business. Hoarding foodstuffs and making it available only when it is expensive is fair business to some people, you know, and I think we need to begin to look at it very dispassionately and begin to see how we can, you know, mitigate the adverse effects of hoarding. But it's really something that we should begin to address very, very quickly, because of course hoarding will lead to scarcity, and scarcity will lead to, when it comes to food items, it leads to food insecurity. When it comes to small businesses, it is also something that we should not encourage within the system. I believe very sincerely that it's time for us to all wake up and begin to encourage productive engagement at the lowest level of society, so that we can grow our economy from bottom up, which is more sustainable than, you know, starting it at a level where most of it will collapse, and at the end of the day the economy does not grow. I think we need to grow our economy through SMEs and through productive engagement at the community level.
All right, as we begin to wind down, DG Smedan, yes, the process sometimes can be very difficult, but people have gone through it, and like you mentioned earlier, there are success stories. Now, using the success stories that have been recorded, what would you say to other Nigerians who are trying to, small, micro and medium small enterprises that are trying to get on there and be part of it and take advantage of these schemes that have been put in place? Certainly, there are all kinds of challenges. You heard people calling in tonight and saying the agencies are not accessible and things like that.
I think honestly, there are some basic and fundamental issues that were raised. And part of those issues is there is really critical need for our MSMEs to access funding, despite all the other gap. But, you know, and I said that the funding gap is very huge, and the money available is also very small to cater for that need. But there is also need for us to utilize the available resources to us. We have to change our attitude. Our attitude to government thing is always in a negative perspective. People see these loans from CBN, National Microfinance, BOI, being that government social intervention program. People see it as part of the national cake. People are just coming, some of them, they don't have genuine business, some of them will just go and forge a business. And then because if the CBN are able to introduce the hand-holding aspect of the intervention, it could address that issue, because once we give you money, we monitor you, we ensure that you utilize the money for that purpose, hand-hold you, monitor you, and ensure that you succeed in what you are doing. But if people are just collecting money and just going about doing whatever they are doing with the money, some will even go and marry more wives, some will even go and buy a car, using that resources that is supposed to be meant for business. There is no way our economy will grow the way we are expecting it. But as I had mentioned earlier, there is lack of character by the operators. Even though there is problem and lack of willingness by some financial institutions to provide funding for the MSMEs because of the risk factor and because of the chances of repayment of the loan, because these commercial banks are looking at this thing as a business. But the social, the banks that are there for the government bank are for social intervention. They are there to address some of the challenges that we have and then try to see how we can provide an economic ground for business activities to thrive in our country. But we shouldn't be looking at it more of commercializing thing and then more of interest generation or more of creating revenue for this. But we should also see it as part of the personal social intervention by the government to move away from poverty and create more jobs and create opportunity and profit and improve the well-being and livelihood of the people in the rural area, and then it will translate to a larger economic growth and development of the country in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Lashupo.
Yeah, I think it's important that every stakeholder comes to this space to play. The gap we're talking about is beyond what government alone will fill. We need the private sector involvement. We also need the entrepreneurs to play their part. Like the DG Spender actually mentioned, beyond capacity, there's also sincerity of purpose. The economy we are trying to build now is one that will go on a sustainable path. Growth is a one-off thing. Development is what we should start thinking about, which is going to be a series of growth in phases. So we've set the phase now. Let's see how well we can midwife these entrepreneurs, build their capacity, grow their contribution in terms of employment generation, because it's basic economics. If there is security around jobs, if we increase production, there will be food security, and we'll also have the normal national security. So those are the indices we need to start targeting. Our best to do it is to enhance synergy among all stakeholders and ensure we are all able to confront this monster that is ravaging the Nigerian economy.
All right. Well, Ahmed Sajo in Ibadan, what are your closing comments on this matter? The people have spoken. Have the people shown that their attitudes are changing? DG Smedan talked about some people accessing these loans for shady reasons. He talked about marrying more wives. I'm not sure people still do that with loans now. But what are your comments?
Let me say that, like I said at the beginning, of the 5 C's of access to credit, the character is the most difficult to assess. You know, there's this simple saying in Hausa, "Mutum ba gishiri bane balle ka ce ka dana shi." A human being is not like salt or sugar that you can test and know whether it's okay or it's not okay. So sometimes people can come with an innocent face, but they collect these loans and they use them for some other purposes. But again, that is where we said, you know, data harvesting and monitoring, evaluation, and tracking of whoever collects anything is very, very vital. At the end of it all, what matters is that these interventions are supposed to improve lives and livelihoods. These interventions are supposed to intervene in the economy in such a manner that they will grow our GDP, they will increase our overall prosperity as a country and as people, and they will mitigate a lot of the negative effects that we are facing. And my very last comment is that the current focus on women, youth, and people who are challenged one way or the other should be increased to the extent that the larger chunk of it should go to younger people who represent the future of our country. If we have a stable young population, the stability of our country is almost guaranteed. And the more we ignore our younger generation, the more crises we will continue to harvest within our socio-political and economic spheres of life. So it's essential that we focus more on women, youth, and the people who have one challenge or the other, because, of course, they are already vulnerable, and we need to address that. And on a very final note, sustainability is key. Whatever project, whatever process we are using to intervene in our system must be something that is sustainable, so that we can get the growth and the development of it within a long period of time. It's supposed to be a marathon. It's not supposed to be a 100 meters dash.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ahmed Sajo, Public Affairs Analyst, who joined us from Ibadan. Network Center. Sajo, good to see you again, and well, stay safe in Ibadan. Thank you. Right. Stay safe in Ibadan.
Very much. Thank you, sir.
To Musa Olashupo, Assistant Director, Development Finance, Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for being on this program. Thank you very much. And for Dr. Diko Morurada, Director General, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDAN. It's been interesting talking to you. Thank you for
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to you too for being part of this program, those who called in, and those who, well, stayed up with us. We thank you. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober, and I say continue to stay safe.